Hey there, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's super fundamental to pharma manufacturing, operational excellence. Like going back to the basics of how we make sure every medicine that comes out is top-notch quality and obviously safe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the bedrock, right? And we've pulled together a whole bunch of different sources for this deep dive, so you get a really well-rounded picture. We've got those official FDA guidance documents, of course.
And of course, we couldn't forget the Code of Federal Regulations, right? Those are like the rule book.
Exactly. Specifically, we're looking at parts 110, 111, and 211. But we didn't stop there.
We want to get a little more hands-on, a bit more practical.
Right. So we've also woven in some insights from industry YouTube channels,
Hmm.
folks on the ground sharing their experiences. It's always good to hear from the people actually doing the work.
Absolutely. So what are we hoping to achieve with all of this? Well, simply put, we want to distill the essential knowledge about how we maintain manufacturing integrity. It's about the systems, the strategies, the risk-based thinking that ultimately make sure we're delivering top quality products and staying compliant with all those regulations. And we're going to do it without making your head spin, I promise.
Yeah, no information overload here,
Yeah.
just the good stuff, presented in a way that's easy to digest and apply.
Exactly. So let's jump right in, shall we? Let's start with something that might seem obvious, but it's the heart of it all. Process validation.
Okay, so process validation, what is it really?
Yeah.
At its core, it's all about proving, with hard evidence, that your manufacturing process, when run under those specific conditions you've laid out, can consistently churn out a product that meets all those predefined quality standards. It's taking the guesswork out and replacing it with science.
Right. It's not enough to just hope for the best. We need proof. And it's not some optional extra either. The regulations, specifically 21 CFR Part 211, make it crystal clear. You need written procedures for production and process control, and guess what? You have to follow them to a T.
To a T, and document everything as you go. No scribbling it down later from memory. It has to be real-time, contemporaneous documentation.
It's like taking really good notes while you're in the lab.
Exactly. And speaking of notes, if there's ever a deviation from those written procedures, something unexpected happens. You can't just ignore it.
Nope. That goes straight into the documentation too, right?
Absolutely. You record the deviation, but you also have to explain why it happened.
Yeah.
More importantly, you need to justify it scientifically and show that it didn't mess up the quality of the product. It's about understanding and controlling those unexpected twists and turns.
So, in essence, it's about proving that the recipe for a life-saving drug actually works, and you can bake that cake the same way every time with the same great results. It's where theory meets reality and has to deliver. But hey, we can't forget about another non-negotiable, right? Keeping things squeaky clean with robust cleaning protocols.
Cleaning. Couldn't agree more. This is huge, especially when you think about contamination and mix-ups. Those are like the nightmares of pharma manufacturing. You mess that up, and you're putting patient safety and product effectiveness at risk. And guess what? The regulations are pretty serious about this too.
They have to be right.
Exactly. 21 CFR Part 110, the general GMP guide,
Yeah.
and Part 111, the one for dietary supplements, they both spell it out. Cleaning is non-negotiable.
And we're not talking just about a quick wipe with a cloth, are we? It's got to be a full-blown system.
Right, a comprehensive strategy that covers everything. Every single piece of equipment that touches the product, all those tools and utensils you're using, and even the entire manufacturing facility itself. It's got to be spotless.
I remember a point that one of the YouTube folks made. They were talking about those GMP facilities and how they're designed from the ground up with contamination in mind, like those airlocks and anterooms.
Oh yeah, the little rooms you have to go through before entering the main production area.
Exactly. Like, think about it. It's like a barrier to keep out all those nasty little airborne contaminants.
It's a whole different way of thinking, isn't it? Not just reacting to contamination, but designing it out from the very start.
Proactive, that's the word. But the point is that robust cleaning protocols and a well-designed facility are the foundation of quality assurance. And that's a big part of what we're trying to get across here, giving our listeners the knowledge they need efficiently and thoroughly to do things right. And this stuff is not just best practice, it's the law.
Now let's move on to the real workhorses of pharma manufacturing, the equipment.
Ah, yes, the machines that make it all happen. But you can't just plug them in and expect magic, right? That's where equipment qualification comes in.
So walk us through this. What does it involve? Okay, so equipment qualification, it's a very well-defined process, several stages, all documented, to make sure that every piece of equipment is fit for its intended use. One of the YouTube channels we watched, they explained it really well. They broke it down into 4 key stages: design qualification, or DQ, installation qualification, IQ, operational qualification, OQ, and then finally, performance qualification, or PQ.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. DQ, that's all about making sure the equipment is designed correctly in the first place, right? Like, it meets the specs, it's good for the job, and of course, it ticks all those GMP boxes.
Exactly. And then you've got IQ, which is where you make sure the equipment was installed correctly, according to the manufacturer's instructions, and of course, in line with CGMP, all those regulations that govern how we do things in pharma manufacturing.
Okay, so the equipment is designed right and it's installed right. What's next?
Next up is operational qualification, OQ. This is where we really start putting the equipment through its paces. We're testing all those critical operating parameters, things like temperature controls, pressure readings, speed settings, making sure they all function as expected within their specified limits. Imagine it as a rigorous workout for the equipment to ensure everything works as it should.
Got it. So like a functional stress test.
Exactly. And then finally, we have performance qualification, PQ. This is where we really get to see if the equipment can deliver in a real-world scenario.
So using the actual product.
Exactly. We run it under real production conditions with the actual product to prove that the qualified equipment can reliably produce a quality product consistently.
This is like the ultimate proof, kind of like what we talked about with process validation, but specifically for the equipment.
Yes, exactly. Now here's something interesting. Any major piece of equipment has to go through this entire qualification life cycle, all 4 stages, not just when it's brand new, but also periodically throughout its life.
So not just a one-time thing.
Nope. Especially after any major repairs, modifications, or even if you move it to a different location. There was this great example in one of the YouTube videos about HPLC systems. They're incredibly sensitive. Even moving one a tiny bit could affect its performance, and then you'd need to requalify it.
Wow, it's amazing how much attention to detail goes into all this. And of course, it's not just about qualifying the equipment once and then forgetting about it, right? We also need to think about calibration to make sure it stays accurate and reliable over time. And that's covered in 21 CFR Part 111, Subpart D, if I'm not mistaken.
You are absolutely right. Calibration is essential for maintaining the accuracy and precision of all those instruments. The regulations state that any equipment you use for testing or processing has to be calibrated before you use it for the first time. And then you have to keep calibrating it at set intervals. Those intervals are often based on the manufacturer's recommendations, or sometimes based on your own assessment of how often it needs to be done to ensure it's staying accurate.
Right, so it could be based on usage, the environment, stuff like that. But it's important to remember that not all equipment needs to go through that whole DQ, IQ, OQ, PQ rigmarole. Things like pH meters and analytical balances, those are more portable everyday instruments.
That's right. Those smaller instruments don't need the full qualification process, but they still need to be calibrated regularly. In fact, because they're moved around a lot and exposed to different conditions, they might need to be calibrated even more frequently than the big equipment, sometimes before each use, or at least daily. You got to make sure those measurements are spot on.
So much to think about, right? But wait, there's more. It doesn't stop at qualification and calibration. There's the whole maintenance side of things too, making sure the equipment stays in tip-top shape.
Oh, absolutely. Regular maintenance, thorough cleaning, and proper sanitization. These are all critical for preventing contamination and extending the lifespan of your equipment. And, of course, you need to document all of it. Remember, if it isn't documented, it wasn't done.
And 21 CFR Part 111 backs that up, right? It talks about inspecting parts, replacing them as needed, having SOPs for all these activities.
Exactly. It's about having a system in place.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this, the qualifications, the calibrations, the maintenance activities, they all have to be meticulously recorded in equipment logbooks. Think of them as the official history of each piece of equipment. They're essential for demonstrating that you're following the rules and for tracing back any issues that might arise.
It's all about traceability and transparency, right?
Yeah.
Making sure everything is clear and accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about validating processes, qualifying equipment, calibrating it, maintaining it. But what happens when you need to make a change to a piece of equipment or a process? Even a seemingly small change. That's where change control procedures come in.
Change control. This is a big one. It's a system for managing any modifications to equipment, processes, materials, specifications, even documentation. Anything that could potentially affect the product or process has to go through change control.
And one of those YouTube videos really drove this point home. They said that even a tiny tweak, something that seems insignificant, could have a ripple effect and cause big problems down the line. So it's really about preventing unintended consequences, right?
Exactly. So any change has to be carefully evaluated, formally approved, and of course documented. There's a whole process involved.
Okay, so what does that process look like?
It usually starts with a formal written request for change. In this document, you spell out exactly what you want to change, why you need to make the change, and what potential risks or impacts the change might have on the product, on patient safety, or even on regulatory compliance.
So it's not just a casual, hey, let's try this instead. There's a lot of thought that goes into it.
Absolutely. Then this change request goes to a review team. This team is made up of folks from different departments: quality assurance, production, engineering, regulatory affairs. They look at the proposed change from all angles: scientific, technical, operational, regulatory, to make sure there aren't any potential downsides or areas that need further investigation.
So it's a thorough review process. And if they give it the thumbs up, is that the end of it?
Not quite. Approval often comes with certain conditions, like they might require additional testing or validation to prove that the change doesn't negatively impact product quality, or they might give very specific instructions on how to implement the change. And there might be mandatory training for the people who will be affected by the change. It's a very structured process to ensure things are done right.
Makes sense. Thinking about all of this, the validation, the cleaning, the qualification, the calibration, the maintenance, the change control,
Yeah.
it all boils down to one fundamental principle: good documentation.
You got it. Good documentation practices, or GDP, are the foundation of everything we do in pharma. There's this saying we use all the time: if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done.
One of the YouTube videos really hammered that home. They were saying that without clear, accurate, and complete records, you can't prove you're doing things right, you can't manage operations effectively, and you definitely can't trace back what happened if something goes wrong.
It would be chaos.
Exactly. And it's not just about scribbling things down on a piece of paper. There are specific principles to follow, right? We mentioned LLCOA plus earlier.
Right, LCOA plus. It stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete, consistent, enduring, and available. These are like the commandments of good documentation.
Wow, that's a mouthful. So just to make sure I've got it straight, attributable means you know who made the record and when they made it. Legible means it's clear and easy to read. Contemporaneous means it was recorded at the time the event happened. Original means it's the first record, not a copy. Accurate means it reflects what actually happened. Complete means all the important information is there. Consistent means the data is presented in the same way every time. Enduring means the records are kept for the required amount of time. And available means you can actually find them when you need them. Did I get it all?
You nailed it. And these principles are enshrined in regulations like 21 CFR Part 111, which specifically mandates that you have written procedures, or SOPs, for every single aspect of your operations.
SOPs, those are like the instruction manuals, right?
Exactly. And one of the YouTube channels emphasized how important it is for those SOPs to be clear, easy to understand, and detailed enough that anyone can follow them. No ambiguity.
Right, want to make sure everyone's on the same page. And then, beyond the SOPs, we have those master production and control records, or batch records.
Ah, yes, the batch records, as mandated by 21 CFR 211. These are like the blueprints for making a specific product. They contain all the information you need to manufacture a product consistently, batch after batch.
So it's like the master recipe.
Exactly. Everything from the product's name and strength to the complete list of ingredients, the detailed manufacturing instructions, in-process controls, quality control procedures, it's all in there. And of course, we've talked a lot about contemporaneous data recording. That's because it's one of the most important aspects of good documentation. You record the information as it happens, you minimize errors, and you prevent people from manipulating the data later on.
It's like taking a snapshot of the process as it's happening. And it's so crucial for maintaining data integrity and making sure everything is transparent. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about process validation, cleaning protocols, equipment qualification and maintenance, change control, and of course the overarching importance of good documentation. And all of these elements together point towards a proactive approach to managing operations in pharma manufacturing.
That's exactly it. It's about anticipating problems, preventing errors, and making sure everything runs smoothly and consistently. By having these systems in place and following them rigorously, manufacturers can significantly enhance the quality of their products, minimize deviations, and reduce defects.
And ultimately, that leads to sustained compliance with all those regulations like 21 CFR Parts 110, 111, and 211.
Exactly. A strong quality system built on these principles of operational excellence is your best insurance policy against regulatory scrutiny. It means you're prepared for audits and inspections, and you're much more likely to pass them with flying colors.
So, to sum it all up for our listeners, we've really tried to give you a clear picture of how important operational excellence is in pharma manufacturing. It's not just about following rules, it's about building a system that protects patients and ensures the quality and safety of the medicines we all rely on.
And here's something to think about. How can you apply these principles? The systematic processes, the meticulous documentation, the proactive risk management to your own work or areas of interest. Even if you're not in pharma, these concepts can be incredibly valuable. Whether you're building software, designing airplanes, or even running a restaurant, the principles of ensuring quality, consistency, and safety are universal. So take a moment to think about how these ideas might apply to your own world.
And hey, if you're curious to learn more, we encourage you to dive into those regulations we mentioned. There's a wealth of knowledge there just waiting to be explored.